The LGBTQ issue is a big one in the church. I think the church has really done a lot of harm. I think it's a human tragedy.
If anybody should have a sensitivity to those who are struggling to fit in, those who are struggling to feel accepted, Mormonism should know as well as anybody what that feels like.
I don't feel like there is an intention to harm me, and yet I cannot ignore that I have been harmed.
Many are still living with older ideas.
I want to share my value of a Mormon congregation welcoming everybody.
I hope that the church will continue to grow and progress and become more inclusive. But we're not there right now.
So we have 5 kids, and I come from a family of 6 kids. My wife comes from a family of 7 kids. Large families are very common in Mormonism, and that's because we believe the family is the fundamental unit of eternity, that we will be bound together in family ties forever. And it's a very beautiful doctrine. It's a very profound doctrine, but it presents real obstacles to including non-traditional families in the mix.
We have to remember that the first duty of the leadership, as they understand their calling, is to safeguard the fundamental doctrines of the church. We have a doctrine of a heavenly mother. We have a doctrine of an eternal family. And it seems clear to me that at the present moment, the leadership is trying to negotiate a reconciliation of those doctrines that are non-negotiable with a more compassionate and all-embracing attitude toward our gay brothers and sisters.
That heterosexuals and homosexuals share something in common. God created them to fall in love. And that falling in love meant for them finding a bond, forming a family. And so when we have people say so easily, well, you just have to wait until the next life, or you need to be celibate, I don't think people really think through what that means.
In November 2015, I was flying to Salt Lake. I changed planes in Denver. While I was in the Denver terminal, I got a text message from Tom Christofferson saying, guess what just happened? It was an announcement by the church of a new policy that declared same-sex couples living together to be in a state of apostasy and punished their children by denying baptism or ordination, and even by denying blessing or christening of infants.
My own daughter came out to me. We were sitting down at dinner and she said, Dad, I need to share something with you. She was at Utah State University at the time, and I was so happy that a daughter who struggled with depression, could be authentic in who she was. When the church came out with the November 2015 policy on the children of gay couples, I was devastated beyond words. I remember that Sunday morning, right before church, sitting in a chair and weeping like a little child, because I understood the pain that would bring to so many people. And I became very vocal online and directly to church administrators, telling them in language that they would understand that I knew with every fiber of my being that policy was not of God, that it was wrong.
It felt like insane. Like it felt like someone was playing a trick, and I'm singing. We're singing that baptism song, that primary song that I love. I like to look for whenever there is rain. And my younger brother is kind of sitting next to me, my mom, and then I'm singing, and then they can hear me, and I stop singing, and it's all very cinematic. Like, it just feels unreal that, like, the timing of the policy, the fact that the policy exists. In all my years, no matter what I was doing, I never felt this, like, feeling of abandonment or this I never felt a negative feeling towards the church.
It was an astounding policy. It came out of the blue. It turned out that the church hadn't even followed its own procedure for achieving a consensus on the policy, that it was pretty much ramrodded through. And there was an immediate uproar and pushback from church members over this.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has come under intense scrutiny following their new official orders against homosexuality, baptism, and children. The new policy change states that same-sex couples will also now be considered apostates, saying it will no longer bless or baptize children of same-sex couples until the child turns 18. Once a child turns 18, he or she will have to disavow same-sex marriage. Then they can be blessed and baptized by the church.
Somebody used the words, they burned the borderlands. Like it just made it feel so untenable to raise children, literally, in this space. In a lot of ways, after that happened, a lot of the people began to scatter. Same-sex couples who started to come to church, they started to leave.
Goodbye.
In an attempt to mollify that demographic within the church, at least one or two of the 70s started to make statements suggesting that this was just a temporary aberration. Even saying, look, this will change and it will change soon, so don't sweat it. But shortly after those cracks in the facade began to develop, Russell Nelson, apparently acting independently, meaning that his colleagues in the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 didn't know he was going to make such a statement, made a statement in a satellite broadcast from Hawaii that, in fact, this was not a policy, that this had the force of revelation.
The recent additions to the Church's handbook, consequent to the legalization of same-sex marriage in some countries, it was our privilege as apostles to sustain what had been revealed to President Monson. Revelation from the Lord to his servants is a sacred process.
I love the church so much, and he spent my life trying to help youth and teenagers take advantage of the wonderful things that are found therein, and I knew they'd never be available for my daughter. It was so hard for me. Shortly after that happened, my 17-year-old son as well came out to us. And I love my children so much, and I want them to live the happiest, most wonderful life that they can lead. And both of them, rightfully so, have a lot of deeply felt resentments towards the church and the way that it made them feel about themselves. To hear my teenage son tell me, Dad, I used to pray every night, please, Heavenly Father, change me when I was a little boy, and all the way up, change me, make me different. Take away these feelings of attraction for another man. And to realize that that is who he was, and that I was raising him in a system and in a belief that made him feel that way about himself. So painful for me. I had to disengage from both church education and the institutional church. As much as I love it and have devoted my life to it, it just is not a healthy place for my family.
It seems as though the Proclamation on the Family was crafted to be kind of intentionally vague or to leave some stuff out. So some examples, it does not mention being gay, being lesbian, being bisexual. It does not mention being transgender. So that seems to be one matter of hope. It doesn't condemn anything. It kind of leaves that out. A second thing is that the Proclamation on the Family states that gender is eternal. The transgender believing Mormons that I know find hope in that, because a transgender believing Mormon woman believes that her gender is eternal. And so she is actually encouraged by that statement, not discouraged. When Boyd K. Packer gave his famously disturbing talk, I believe it was 2010, where he said, what type of loving Heavenly Father would make someone gay or lesbian? I'm paraphrasing.
Some suppose that they were preset and cannot overcome what they feel Our inborn tendencies toward the impure and the unnatural, not so. Why would our Heavenly Father do that to anyone?
He also said in that General Conference talk that the Proclamation on the Family was doctrinal.
The family, a proclamation to the world. It qualifies according to the definition as a revelation.
He even uses a grammatical howler in there.
And it would do well that the members of the church to read and follow.
That's not Boyd Packer. He was very precise. He wrote his talks out. He practiced them. This one, it looks like he spoke this far from the script and he went out on a limb and tried to canonize it.
The church removed that part of his talk from the published version of his talk. Why did they do that? It must be what many of us have actually found out from conversations within the church, which is that the brethren themselves, and I'm talking about the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and the First Presidency, the brethren do not have a unanimous position on the Proclamation on the Family. There are, according to sources that I've talked to, there are apostles that do not believe that the Proclamation on the Family should be canonized. There are others that do. So it is possible in the future that the status of the Proclamation on the Family could change.
It's interesting that we tout as one of our articles of faith the principle of continuing revelation. As a people, as an institution, we are proud of the principle of an open canon, what was called in the earlier ages the Bible with its covers torn off kind of concept. And yet it's been several decades before we have actually engaged in a process of canon expansion or redaction.
The story within the Proclamation of the Family and the story behind it will continue to unfold. All of the information that I've been able to gather says that the brethren are deeply divided on LGBTQ issues, perhaps more divided on those than any other issues within our lifetime.
My beloved brothers and sisters, a house divided against itself cannot stand. To the feelings that swirl around marriage and the whole same-sex topic on campus and a lot of other topics, my brethren have made the case for the metaphor of musket fire.
The controversial musket fire speech.
Elder Holland seemed to imply the university needed to take up a metaphorical musket to defend church doctrine on marriage being between a man and a woman.
I'm grateful we have scholars today who can handle, as it were, both trowels and muskets. And then he goes on to say, then Elder Oaks said challengingly, quote, I would like to hear a little more musket fire from this temple of learning.
Some BYU students are not only critical of what he said, but how he said it.
Purposefully directing it towards the queer community is so harmful and isolating. And so I think that was a huge, huge dig.
I had general authorities come to me when I was a leader of the Senate. Say, you know, we got this thing going, Proposition 8, we want to tell you what we're doing. And I said, without equivocation, we're a proselyting church. This is going to be something you're going to rue the day that you got involved in this. And all it did is hurt the church, like I said it would. They lost. And what did they do in the courts? They knew they would win in the courts. They got beaten in the courts by a very conservative Supreme Court of the United States.
I was president of the Claremont Mormon Studies Student Association during Prop 8. And there were a lot of things that I was being asked to do as a practicing Latter-day Saint to support Prop 8 that I refused to do as a matter of conscience. An extended family member of mine said, you know, I might feel differently if I were you, but I don't know any gay people. So I don't have the sort of dissonance that you have. And I said, you know, I promise you that you know lots of gay people and that there are gay people in your congregation listening to what's being said over the pulpit. But they're never going to tell you, right? They're never going to feel safe enough to disclose who they really are.
I had people call me and say, you aren't following the prophet. Well, I think I was. You know that what I've come to understand is I follow the leaders of the church, but they're not infallible. You know, they're not popes. They're fallible. They've made mistakes.
People, they say that they know that the prophet is fallible. They know that the prophet makes mistakes. But I don't think that they don't practice that. It's not part of their practice.
You know, you've probably heard the joke, right? Catholics say that their pope is infallible, but no Catholics believe he's infallible. And Mormons say that their prophet is fallible, but they all think he's infallible.
And there have been some efforts on the part of some of the leaders of the church to walk that back, to insist in general conference addresses that mistakes have been made.
To be perfectly frank, there have been times when members or leaders in the church have simply made mistakes. There may have been things said or done that were not in harmony with our values, principles, or doctrine.
We're human. This is a church run by human people, and perhaps even the people at the head of this church are also human.
Going forward, I don't think the brethren want to be on the wrong side of this issue. In the past, a very similar issue being race and priesthood. I think the brethren made a lot of serious mistakes there that caused room for people to question their access to the divine. And to be on the wrong side of this issue, I think, is even more dangerous.
I want anyone who is a member of the church, who is gay or lesbian, to know I believe you have a place in the kingdom, and recognize that sometimes it may be difficult for you to see where you fit in the Lord's church, but you do. We need to listen to and understand what our LGBT brothers and sisters are feeling and experiencing. Certainly, we must do better than we have done in the past, so that all members feel they have a spiritual home where their brothers and sisters love them and where they have a place to worship and serve the Lord.
This is the honor code. This is the official honor code now. There's an addendum, but it mentions nothing about LGBT issues. If you read it, it's very, very similar to the old honor code, but they took out the 2 paragraphs that prohibited homosexual behavior. They took it out. It does not exist anymore. It does not exist.
What happened at BYU is those students, I felt they were 8 days in power of thinking. We can be free within this community.
So when they first took the section out of the honor code when they said that same-sex couples could date on campus, I felt super excited. And I came out as queer to everyone because I was like, I can finally be myself. And there's a picture of me kissing a girl in front of the Brigham Young statue. And so it was a big deal, and I felt like I could finally be myself. I was super happy.
Then to be told you misunderstood, what you thought was not what we meant, was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me. I think it was heartbreaking for anybody who understands what it's like to love somebody and be told that you can't.
Students protested at BYU this afternoon after a letter was released from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Church Education System.
And so when I heard about the CES response letter about the experience at BYU, it reminded me of Jeremy Reynolds' letter to the CES. So you have 2 letters, one written to the CES, another letter written from the CES. And both of them, I think, have caused enormous consternation or confusion.
My voice be.
I understand the protests. I understand the disillusionment.
I totally understood why a gay Mormon needed to lead the church for the sake of health and wholeness. And my attitude was like, God be with you. I love you. I totally get it. But there's a lot of important stuff going on here for me, and I'm going to be in the church. But then a couple interesting things happened as my kids became older teenagers. They started to look at it with different eyes. And so I just thought, where do you not see a lot of Mormons, a lot of active Mormons? Pride parades. You really don't see a lot of Mormons there. What if at the Utah Pride Parade, I find some friends and we march not in spite of our religion, but because of our religion, because the love that Jesus Christ teaches, because of the gospel of Jesus Christ, unconditional love from God. Could we not do that and make a statement? And it was a Sunday, we'd march in our Sunday best. And I hoped 25 people would come, and 350 people showed up. And it was a wonderful big deal. As we were marching that day, would come up and hug us and say, when I had to decide between my identity and my religion, I had to choose my identity, but it left a hole in my heart that I have never filled. Thank you, thank you. And that was just such an eye-opener for me. I didn't realize how painful it was to give up on the church. There were Mormons out there who wanted to figure out a way to use this love that we are constantly being taught, that we all believe in, that we all have personal testimonies of person-to-person love and how that works and how you feel that God is there when that happens. How can we do this within this existing doctrine? Just very, very difficult. But let's give it a try.
You might not expect it in one of the reddest states in the nation. But last year, Utah was the only state to advance statewide non-discrimination protections for LGBT people. Backed by the Mormon Church and passed with a Republican supermajority in the legislature, the new law, dubbed the Utah Compromise, sought to protect LGBT people from housing and employment discrimination.
People outside of Utah would never imagine that our state would lead on LGBTQ rights, but we have.
We simply gave additional rights to the LGBTQ community, and we gave additional rights to the religious community.
Of course, more work has to be done.
What I'm calling for is for our homosexual brothers and sisters to be treated like our heterosexual brothers and sisters.
To mourn with those who mourn, to comfort those who stand in need of comfort. And we don't choose the type of mourning that we're going to stand by. It's a call is for us to be with everybody, to be in solidarity with all of God's children.
So now we go 3+ years into the future, and again, out of nowhere, there is an announcement that that policy had been reversed.
According to CNN, the Mormon Church said in a surprise announcement on Thursday that they will no longer label same-sex couples as apostates and will allow their children to be baptized into the church without special approval from church leaders.
Please disregard what we said 3 years ago. And that may be unprecedented in the history of the church. It's also caused a lot of heartburn for some of the more orthodox members who were locked into the idea that once something has the seal of revelation pasted on it, it's immutable. Clearly, it wasn't.
To claim that this is revelation from God in 2015 and then turn around 3 years later and reverse the policy. Well, how many people died during those 3 years?
Well, I take comfort in the fact that this is a church that prides itself on being built on the idea of modern revelation. And there's absolutely no question in my mind that we need further light and knowledge when it comes to how we treat our LGBTQ brothers and sisters.
I stand before my family, friends, and graduating class today to say that I am proud to be the gay son of God.
Since the policy, I have had more just very orthodox, committed Latter-day Saints have come to me and said, I'm struggling. And I think the policy did that. It is provoking more wrestling and questioning and discussion than anything that has come before.
In every ward I've lived in, we have cohabiting heterosexual families, couples, and their children. What do? We reach out to them, we minister to them, we welcome their children to primary, we welcome them to sing in the choir. If we just did that with our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, if we just treated them equally, that would be a huge step in the right direction, a huge step toward what I feel we're called to do with them.